Hi, in this video lecture we discuss computer and assisted technology from ergonomics book. Now let's start with introduction. Cumulative trauma disorder, a term basically used to refer injury from repeated stress placed on the tendon, muscles or nerves causing inflammation or damage. Dose response model, most important. This model consisting of four interactive components: exposure, dose, capacity and response, which are used to predict risk factors of CTDs, that is cumulative trauma disorder. What is video display terminal? A combination of an electronic display screen, a keyboard, an input device and furniture. Workstation design, basically organization of video display terminal, that is VDT, in a work environment to minimize risk factors to VDT users. Look at this. This is the ideal posture for the computer users. Shoulder relaxed, upper arm vertical, hand relaxed, lumbar supported, sitting back in chair, elbow next to the side, forearm supported and then wrist neutral. Now let's have some introduction. The computer workstation has become common both at work and at home and is now used routinely for many purposes including data entry, word processing, telecommunication, web browsing, purchasing, inventory, designing, testing and entertainment. Many computer operators type up to 60 words per minute for more than 8 hours a day, and that is more than 100,000 keystrokes per day. Workers commonly spend long periods sitting in a static posture at computer workstations with only minimal opportunities to reposition the trunk, neck and arms. Basically, extensive evidence indicates that working with the computer terminals and keyboard is associated with the development and exacerbation of a variety of the work-related disorders involving the back, neck and upper limbs. Such conditions, known as cumulative trauma disorders, are considered to be the industrial injuries of the information age. Other terms for CTD include repetitive strain injury, muscle tendon syndrome, and the occupational overuse syndrome. What medical problems associated with CTD? Medical problems commonly associated with the CTD include tenosynovitis, wrist tendonitis, recurrent tenosynovitis, epicondylitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, and tension neck syndrome. There has been a greater awareness of the impact repetitive computer use has on the visual system. Epidemiology of the cumulative trauma disorder. Bureau of the Labor Statistics has reported a rising incidence of the musculoskeletal disorders of the upper extremity, which accounts for 70% of all the occupational illness. Then, National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health estimates that 15 to 20% of the workforce in the United States is at risk for developing a CTD. CTDs cost industries in the United States $27 billion in 1989, and CTD claims made by the workers in other developed countries such as Australia and Canada continue to escalate. The number of the keyboard workers with CTDs is as much as 12 times the number of the non-keyboard users with CTDs. Among data processors, the prevalence of the musculoskeletal disorders is as high as 86%. CTDs are reported to be more than twice as common in women as in men in workers between 30 and 50 years old. Then further, Ekman and co-workers revealed that odds ratio for women suffering from MSK disorder was 11.9 times that of for men. CTD can lead to a severe decline in work performance with serious consequences to the employee, employer and medical and social services. Then a survey in Hong Kong examined musculoskeletal syndrome in office workers. Workers reported a high incidence of the musculoskeletal symptoms, particularly in the shoulder, lower back, neck and upper back. Basically in shoulder, percentage is much high. Low rate of incidence were reported in the elbow, forearm and fingers. Similar findings also reported by Silanpa and colleagues in 2000 3. Approximately 60% of the workers felt that the onset of this discomfort began after the commencement of their present employment. Among the workers who reported MSK discomfort, approximately 44% experienced reducing capacity in lifting more than 10-pound load, 42% in sports, 37% in childcare, and 32% in housework. Basically, results of the study also indicated that workplace design, for example, desktop, chair height, leg room, job design, and hours of the computer operations were the most important risk factors contributing to the symptoms despite inconsistent results that were reported in the later studies. The pathophysiology of CTDs is not completely known. Basically, epidemiological and clinical studies suggest that causes of the CTD consist of both intrinsic and extrinsic factors. Studies have demonstrated that cumulative and repetitive force applied to the same muscle group, joint, or tendon causes soft tissue microtears and trauma. Then further, scientists Barbie, Clark beat evidence on the causal effect of the high repetition negligible force on the injury and inflammation of the soft tissue. This chronic soft tissue condition is further aggravated by the muscle exertion and excessive joint movement. Basically, several risk factors including repetitive motion, excessive force, and awkward working posture are closely associated with CTDs in computer users, or you can say in keyboard operators. The risk of CTDs is also associated with psychosocial factors such as personal characteristics, role conflict or ambiguity, excessive workload and work stress, negative social interaction. Now look at dose response model. Armstrong and colleagues proposed a dose response model for determining risk factors of the CTDs. The model has 4 interactive components: exposure, dose, capacity, and then response. What is exposure? Exposure refers to the worker's external or work environment and include physical characteristics of the job, including weight, size, and shape of the tools, and then psychological factors such as job security. This is exposure basically. Dose refers to basically internal environment of an individual's body and include mechanical forces acting on the body tissues, physiological consumption of the metabolic substrates, and production of the metabolites within the tissue, as well as the psychological disturbances such as anxiety about work. These 2 factors are thought to act on every individual in the workplace and at home. Individuals react to these factors according to their capacity, which is the physical and psychological ability to resist destabilization caused by one or more doses. An individual's reaction to exposure and dose modified by his or own capacity is a response. Basically, CTDs are the consequences of these responses when body's capacity is incapable of resisting deleterious changes induced by the exposure. That is, body tissue cannot repair the damage as fast as it occurs. The dose response model basically predicts that individual's capacity can be reduced by continuous mechanical, physiological, and psychological events such as muscle fatigue, minor injuries, and mental stress. CTDs occurs when the exposure and dose exceeds the capacity of the individual to respond in a healthy manner. The result of the numerous experimental studies are consistent with the prediction of this model. Basically, the dose response model is also useful in explaining interventions that may prevent or reduce CTDs. For example, interactions among an individual capacity, dose, and response suggest that mobilization exercise, including stretching and strengthening of the body, can be beneficial in improving capacity by restoring weak and injured muscles. If regular physical exercise, mobilization exercise of involved body parts reduces the discrepancy between the dose and capacity of the individual, decreasing the effect of a deleterious response and the probability of developing a CTD. Risk factors of the cumulative trauma disorders, exacerbation and reduction. Many investigators basically have identified risk factors that are closely associated with the upper extremity CTDs, including repetitive motion, excessive force, maintenance of the awkward or constrained postures for prolonged periods, mechanical stress via direct pressure, vibration, and extreme temperatures. These factors are not equally relevant for all tasks. For example, according to the dose response model, The probability of developing a CTD can be reduced by minimizing the exposure to the task and the work environment, and therefore to the dose. An effective job modification program basically reduces the frequency with which a worker is exposed to one or more risk factors. Look at this. Posture is basically screen on eye level, an arm length gap 16 to 30 inches, then 70 to 80 angle, desktop computer, desk height 28 to 30 inches, thighs parallel to the floor, footrest, and then chair height, that is 60 to 20 inches, and 9 elbow angle 90 to 110 degree. This is ideal position for computer users. Exposure time should be further reduced when the task is monotonous, the work environment is impoverished from a psychological viewpoint, and especially high demand is required for productivity, or rest breaks are infrequent. Varying the type of task in a work shift is advisable to ensure that worker is not exposed to any single task for an extended period of time. Taylor basically concluded that breaks or micro pauses very effective for reducing muscle fatigue and musculoskeletal symptoms and improving performance. A number of the studies suggest that keyboard tasks entail exposure to a number of the risk factors and are prime factors in the development of the CTDs. Not only are the keyboard tasks performed for an extended time, but the tasks also usually involve the simultaneous presence of the two or more risk factors, further increasing the risk of developing a CTD. The combined effect of excessive force and repetitive movement has been stated to be considerably more injurious than either factor alone. The relevance of the working as a computer station to each of the major CTD risk factors is described in the following sections. Repetitive motion. Basically, high repetition is typical of the performance of the many keyboard operators who often type at a rate of up to 100,000 keystrokes per day. Penn and Shelfer observed that subjects with high ratings of the upper extremity discomfort during the data entry task had lower keyboard store rate. Forceful motion. Basically, keyboard operators exert peak forces in the range of 2 to 3 Newton, approximately 3 to 9 times more than the force actually required to activate the key. The use of this amount of the force means that keyboard keys are moved downward to their limit. Not only does this result in a greater travel than required to activate the keys, but the user may also encounter additional force by hitting down to the bottom of the key. Whether the forces generated during each keystroke can be considered to be sufficiently high to be injurious is unclear, especially when their magnitude is compared with those generated during other manual jobs, categorized as low 20 Newton to high 125 Newton force. Festin and Cleeks and Zato and Cleeks found that office workers who reported upper extremity musculoskeletal symptom with greater frequency severity exerted high level of the key force while tapping than office workers who reported fewer and less severe symptoms. In contrast, Penn and Shelfer observed that subjects who had high ratings of upper extremity discomfort during a day task exerted low key force. The two studies differ in several respects, however, including the exact nature and duration of the task and whether the subject reported previous symptoms. In tasks such as typing, which are performed for extended period of time, the cumulative typing force rather than the peak force measured above is highly likely to be more important. The user's susceptibility to injury is affected by the typing speed, the forces is exerted on each key, the total typing time, and the amount of the time spent on each key. The surge in the use of the Windows-based software, menu-driven interfaces, and graphic user interfaces manipulating a standard mouse now accounts for as much as 65% of the time spent at some computer tasks. Certain mouth tasks such as dragging impose certain loading on the finger flexor muscles. Anderson then studied the use of the mouse and keyboard as related to the development of the CTS, that is carpal tunnel syndrome. The result indicates that participants spend more time using the mouse than the keyboard in a week, that is 40.7 hours for the female subjects and 12.5 hours for the male subject using the mouse versus 9.3 hours for the female subjects and 8 hours of the male subjects using the keyboard. The study suggested that elevated risk of carpal tunnel syndrome when using a mouse for more than 12 hours per, 20 hours per week. Awkward postures and constrained positions. Typing is a composite task in which arms, shoulder, and trunk provide a static support base while the digits engage primarily in a dynamic work. In some cases, the same muscle alternately engage in both type of work. For example, look at this example. Extensor digitorum communis provides both static wrist support and dynamic finger joint control. In the classic type position, elevated muscle activity has been found in the proximal musculature, including the muscle responsible for shoulder elevation, abduction, forearm pronation, and ulnar deviation. Further, Kala observed a number of the postures used by the keyboard operators suffered from serious upper extremity symptoms. These postures include the alienated thumb, and a hyperextended fifth digits, both of which induces users to assess the keyboard at injurious joint angles and muscle ends. Ulnar deviation of the wrist in excess of the 20 degree has frequently observed and been associated with the elevated pressure in the carpal tunnel. Depth measurement of the carpal tunnel pressure via flexible catheter pressure transducer has shown that pressure is lowest when the wrist is slightly extended and slightly ulnar deviated. Then Sauter and co-worker analyzed self-report data from 700 computer users and found a number of the posture-related factors associated with the presence of the musculoskeletal discomfort. In particular, low and soft C surface were associated with the leg discomfort, and keyboards placed above the elbow level were associated with arm discomfort as well as high level of neck and shoulder girdle discomfort. Basically, many studies that have documented the relationship between the user posture and CTD symptoms, Fawcett and Rampel showed that keyboard height was significantly related to the severe pain and stiffness in the shoulder, neck, and upper back in a group of the 150 computer operator workers in a newsroom. Awkward and constrained posture also typify use of a standard mouse. Computer operators tend to maintain their shoulder in excessive external rotation and keep their wrist in extreme ulnar deviation for prolonged period of time. They also experience discomfort at shoulder, elbow, wrist. Significant increase in muscle activity levels and amount of the perceived effort are related to the position of the arm and forearm during manipulation of the mouse and to the user's anthropometric characteristics. Less than optimal placement of the mouse was associated with the prevalence of the upper limb symptoms. Then Ara concluded that load on the trapezius muscle and pain intensity and duration was significantly reduced among the computer operators when the workstation layout was adjusted by providing more workspace surface at the tabletop for operating the keyboard and mouse as well as an adjustable table and chair. Although the awkward and constrained posture basically contributed to the development of CTDs, evidence existed that adopt, design and work style factors such as task duration are even more damaging. Look at this optimal viewing, and this is slouched posture, healthy posture, and neck and back pain in this posture, bad viewing, and this is relaxed posture. Mechanical stress caused by direct pressure. Mechanical stress caused by direct pressure, such as that exerted when objects pressed down on the base of the palm, can contribute to the development of the CTDs. Feldman and co-workers and Russ and colleagues, for example, stated that cubital tunnel syndrome with subsequent ulnar neuropathy is commonly caused by the worker chronically leaning on his elbow, on desk, armrest, or her surface during working. Russ and colleagues also stated that sustaining the elbow in a position of prolonged flexion, elevating the risk of ulnar nerve compression, and increases susceptibility to cubital tunnel syndrome. Basically, this results in disturbed sensation in the fourth and fifth fingers and later side of the hands and weakness of the flexor carpi ulnaris, digitorum profundus, and dorsi muscles. Vibration. Exposure to excessive vibration at the work site can lead to the sensory impairment such as paresthesia and diminished tactility, then reducing the worker's capacity or ability to determine or gauge the amount of the force necessary to hold and manipulate objects. Affected individuals tend to exert too much force during repetitive manual tasks, causing soft tissue damage. Vibration is prevalent at many job sites. It rarely occurs during keyboard tasks. Extreme temperatures. Low temperature is another CTD risk factor. Low temperature below 20 degree was found to reduce manual dexterity and performance and to accentuate the symptoms of nerve impairment. No, Evaluation of the impact of exposure. Basically, dose response model emphasizes that exposure is a crucial factor in the occurrence of the CTDs. Basically, we use three methods to quantify the impact of the exposure, including self-reporting questionnaires, on-site observation, and EMG, that is electromyography. Self-reporting questionnaires are used to obtain information on workers' physical and psychological symptoms and focus on perceived job demands, subjective analysis of the workstation, parts of the body in which symptoms occur, duration of the symptom over a particular period, and the effect of the symptom on activities at work and during leisure time and the time of work. The standardized Norden questionnaire is a well-known self-report form for the entire body. Other questionnaires focus primarily on CTD in the neck and upper extremity. Basically, self-reporting questionnaire, many of which have been shown to be reliable and valid, provide valuable information about workers, their behavior, and their environment without being overly invasive and time-consuming procedures. Basically, this method is inherently subjective and often not sufficiently accurate. Look at this. This is a sample questionnaire. Look the symptoms at every and each area of the body. Look at this. Have you at any time during the last 12 months had trouble during last week, and during last you have prevented from carrying out relaxation activities? Look at this. Body posture and job demands and social support. These are some questions that are asked and answers are graded as always, sometimes, and never. For example, during my work I keep a good work posture. Always, sometimes, or never. When I work my head is bended. Sometimes, always, never. And these are some sample questions. Concentrate on this. No. On-site observations and measurement can provide more detailed information on the interactions among workers, worker tasks, and workstation. Information is commonly recorded on video, which can be reviewed with behavior checklists on to quantify the content and duration of the relevant aspect of the task performance. Basically, metric measurement of the dimensions of the workstation and quantification of the job demands can be compared directly with the anthropometric database. The extent of the mismatch among workstation tasks and workers and its contribution to the occurrence of the CTDs can be estimated. Validity of on-site observation methods can be compromised, however, when tasks are variable and not well defined. Furthermore, factors such as muscular load, angular velocity, and extent of the fatigue cannot be addressed by observational method. You can't measure angular velocity by observational method. You can't measure extent of fatigue. You can't measure how much times muscle is loaded. Basically, labor-intensive procedure of video analysis and difficulty in applying the results to the other job and the tasks are heterogeneous and work environments are atypical. Also, drawbacks of these methods. EMG evaluation. Basically, EMG evaluation of the magnitude and duration of the muscle activity is another method basically commonly used to analyze the muscular work pattern at workstation. For example, EMG studies of trapezius muscle under various load conditions with at workers who sat with the thoracolumbar spine slightly posteriorly inclined and with the cervical spine vertically aligned reported less strain on the muscle when compared with those who sat while the whole spine straight and vertical or with the whole spine flexed. Basically, occurrence of the fatigue as shown by the changes in EMG spectral density can also be used to rate the load on different muscles. Basically, EMG evaluation is accurate in isolating and quantifying the effect of the exposure on the worker's musculoskeletal capacity and responses. However, EMG is perceived by the workers as more invasive than either the questionnaire or on-site observation approaches. Care must be taken to avoid disturbance. For example, excessive movement of the wrist when using EMG in the work environment to ensure that results are reliable. This is EMG, basically the graphical representation. Basically, needle electrode inserted in the muscle. Neurologist tells you when to contract and relax the muscles. Needle records muscle activity during rest and movement. Evaluation of the work capacity of keyboard users. Basically, functional capacity evaluation can determine whether worker has the attribute necessary for a specific job. For the dose response model and FCE that is functional capacity evaluation, measures the capacity in relation to the exposure imposed by the performance of the task. Basically, an FCE can also help clinician monitors the progress of the workers with injury undergoing rehabilitation program and then identify any needs for specific clinical interventions to meet work demands. A number of the commercial or custom-made evaluation packages and instruments have been designed to implement an FCE. The most common approach for evaluating work capacity is the use of work samples. What is work sample? Basically, work sample is a set of activities involving tasks, materials and tools that are identical or similar to those in an actual job or job clusters. Because CTDs have many causes, a number of the work samples and actual tasks are more useful than a single example for evaluating computer and keyboard operators. The activities that are important to the computer workers are those involving the upper extremities. Upper extremities activities include fingering, reaching and using manual dexterity. Those concerning the head, neck and back, basically sustained erect posture, prolonged sitting and eye-hand coordination, and those who can sustain tension, concentration and memory. The work sample select should evaluate these job demands. Basically, appropriate work samples for computer workers are still uncommon. Developer work set components basically includes a few work sets that simulate the demand of sedentary work but are not specific to the computer task. Basically, other FCEs that stimulate work tasks regarding the computer and keyboard operation include the BTE Primus, work stimulator where from the Baltimore therapeutic equipment. Then the LitoWork stimulator no longer available. Basically, drawback of these computerized work simulators is that they involve the performance of the isolated task in unnatural condition, reducing the applicability of the research to the real work environment. Besides this work sample approach, job site evaluation, situational assessment and psychometric instruments are used to address different clinical problems, leading to different strategies to improve work efficiency and minimize work-related injuries. What are the solutions related to the workstation setup? Modifying the work environment to suit the workers' anthropometric characteristics and performance requirements is important in CTD's intervention. Recommendations are ideally based on the analysis of the specific job site, including providing adjustable tables and chairs that permit a more relaxed shoulder position and desk surface large enough to accommodate a keyboard, a mouse and adjustable computer mounts. One of the greater concerns in workstation design was the need to accommodate the varying task requirements and related postural adjustments. For example, substantial differences exist between the joint position required by typing on a keyboard and those required when manipulating a pointing device. Basic use of alternative devices such as ergonomics keyboard requires support surface that are larger than the standard keyboard tray. The larger size of some of the alternative ergonomic keyboard also forces users to make considerable changes in head, neck, trunk and upper extremity position when switching between keyboard and mouse tasks such as reading, writing and editing text. Moreover, there is often a need to accommodate multiple users, each with his or her anthropometric dimensions or at a single workstation. Generally, users are advised to maintain their limbs in what is referred to as a neutral posture. Neutral posture basically involves having the following: head, neck and trunk aligned at midline, head upright, not too far forward, shoulders retracted and relaxed, upper arms relaxed at side of the body, elbow flexed to approximately 90 degrees, forearms not completely pronated, preferably close to the midline, wrist aligned with the forearms with minimal ulnar or radial definition and minimal flexion or extension. This is a neutral posture that has practiced by the students. Adjustment of the keyboard height and slope is one of the most frequently recommended changes in the computer workstation setup. Support for the importance of the height adjustment come from the studies such as that of the sorter and co-workers, in which several hundred computer users reported that arm discomfort increased as keyboard height was raised above the elbow level. Most investigators basically agree that correct keyboard height is important in achieving comfortable, safe and effective use during prolonged data entry tasks. The range in value recommended for the general population is extremely wide. This presumably reflects both a wide range of the user preferences and significant variation in the anthropometric characteristics. Adjusting keyboard slope is another commonly recommended change. Almost all computer operators are constructed, computer keyboards are constructed with the modest upward incline and have the option of achieving a small additional incline provided by two small pop-up support posts located beneath this keyboard. However, one study showed that subjects preferring typing on a keyboard that has declined by the degree below the horizontal eliminate the built-in slope. The subject in this study chosen to sit approximately 10 cm further from the computer screen when the keyboard angle was flattened. A more recent study showed that angles ranging from 0 to 30 degrees, a negative sloped keyboard provided significant reduction in exposure to deviated wrist postures and muscle activity and comparable performance. In another study, wrist extension decreases as the keyboard slope decreased, and there was a small decrease in the muscle activity of the extensor carpi ulnaris. The combined adjustment of the slope and proximity of the keyboard to the monitor did not have a significant effect on the muscle activity of the trapezius. Variation in the keyboard's pitch, roll and yaw angles on finger motions, wrist motion and tendon level were examined. Tendon travel was influenced by pitch, whereas wrist deviation was influenced by all three angles. Varying monitor height by 80 to 120 centimeter has been shown to have a significant effect on neck angle, thoracic bending and vertical eye position. Monitor height. In contrast, Cattray and colleagues showed that raising the height of the computer monitor by approximately 13 cm from an initial desktop height of 96.5 centimeter have no significant effect on head and neck angle for group experienced computer users. Further, a recent study of female bifocal viewers showed that although the self-reported pain symptoms are correlated with hours of VDD's work, there was no correlation for these users between pain and monitor placement. Sagas and colleagues showed that lowering screen height resulted in a decreased ear-eye angle, increased viewing angle, and increased muscle activity of the neck extensor muscles. So, based on EMG results, basically muscle fatigue was observed unearly, although muscle activity did increase significantly in some muscles and for certain screen heights. Basically, Hamilton found that source document position had a significant muscle activity levels. Large neck extensors and sternocleidomastoid EMGs were recorded when subjects read documents laid flat on a table. Placement of the documents further from the user midline in either vertical or horizontal direction also increase EMG activity. Ideally, source documents should be placed so that head and body remain symmetrically aligned in a middle position. Further, some studies suggest that workstation dimension not as important as previously determined for computer workers. Moreover, not all the workstation characteristics affect postures, and many computer users don't work in neutral postures. Improvement in workstation characteristics was associated with an enhanced perception by the users of ergonomics qualities, and they reported less upper back and greater satisfaction. Issues related to desktop and notebook computers. Basically, compared with the desktop computer user, basically notebook computer users are much more limited in their ability to adjust head and body posture to comfortable position because screen and keyboard of a notebook computer are joined. EMG individual studies have shown that notebook users have significantly more neck flexor activity and tilt their head further anteriorly than when they use a desktop computer. However, no further other differences in body posture were observed, and user complaints of more discomfort after 20-minute session with the notebook than they experience when using a desktop computer for the same amount of time. Further, a recent study that more flex posture were adopted when using smaller size computer, but there was greater neck movement when using desktop computers. The viewing distance decreases as the computer size decreased. Particular caution should be taken when using very compact and lightweight portable personal computer because it's tempting use with them while they are positioned in location that lead to awkward postures. issues related to the keyboard layout. Basically, neither the layout nor the characteristics of the individual keys in the most standard computer keyboard take into account then fingers differ in strength, dexterity, and susceptibility to fatigue. For example, the thumb possesses the greatest strength and agility. It is generally allocated the least amount of work. Over the years, the standard layout has been severely criticized. Basically, Ferguson and Duncan suggested that more efficient layout would avoid the placement of the commonly occurring letters in the front and back rows. Unlike the standard quadtree design, in which most of the typing is done on the back row, a major objective of the DevOps alphabetic numeric layouts was to diminish digit and hand movement. These all layouts are basically shown in figures in coming slides. Indeed, this keyboard is considered by some to be an optimal layout because it permits the typing of next step in large number of the commonly used words exclusively with home row characteristics. Despite the considerable interest in DevOps and other layouts over the years, that standard layout dominates the market. Although some studies have reported that DevOps layout is easier to learn and enable its users to achieve greater speed and accuracy, others dispute these findings and state that improvement of less than 5 to 10% are more realistic. Indeed, a critical examination of the evidence for and against the two keyboard layouts has shown that little, if none, advantage companies that have work layout to date. No reliable evidence demonstrate that the work layout results in less fatiguing or injurious keyboard use. This is quadtree design, and this is the DevOps keyboard layout. Solutions related to the keyboard structure. Basically, variations in keyboard structures have been subject of fairly intensive study over the years, with the objective providing faster, more accurate, less fatiguing, and more comfortable keyboard access. Splitting, that is split tilt keyboard. Keyboard into two symmetrical halves provides the possibility of tremendous flexibility hand digit position. Each half keyboard can be tilted laterally, enabling the typist to rotate the forearm from prone to a mid position. In some models, the angle between each half can also be enlarged, enabling greater flexibility of the wrist. Further, in an early study, later it appeared to be increase the key press rate and decreases errors, but did not alter users' perceived fatigue. In contrast, neither experienced nor inexperienced typists in the Chromia study of a split keyboard demonstrated any significant improvement in typing accuracy, although they claim to be more comfortable with the split tilted keyboard. Basically, later tilts in the range of 10 to 30 degrees combined with the modest opening angle decreases muscle activity in the shoulder girdle and arm regions, getting more comfortable keying. The later study also showed that in comparison with the standard keyboard, the split open angle keyboard greatly decreases ulnar deviation. Another study showed that comfort keyboard adjusted to at least slope of 30 degrees and horizontal split of 20 degree enable subject to type with less ulnar deviation and wrist extension. In the same study, TrueForm keyboard also reduces ulnar deviation but causes subject to type with wrist extension beyond accepted safe wrist extension values. Basically, examining the ability of the split keyboard to reduce CTD incidents or to reduce symptoms in those who have been injured when using a traditional keyboard are unavailable. Despite mixed evidence concerning their effectiveness in CTD reduction, a number of the split keyboards that cater primarily to computer users who have an existing injury or wish to avoid a potential injury are available. Basically, fixed split keyboards, the most common and the least expensive of the alternative keyboards, have a fixed lateral split angle and sometimes slightly raised center. Some of the more popular brands are listed in table 13.1. Some are larger than the standard keyboard, forcing the user to enable additional 5 to 7 cm to operate the mouse. With adjustable split keyboards, lateral angle and in some models the vertical angle can be varied. Look at this diagram. This is the radial position, basically most common ergonomics typing position, and this is radial position stage 3, 6 degrees radial adjustment to elevate horizontal wrist stress. A recent meta-analysis examined the efficacy of the three alternative keyboard designs, including adjustable slope, split fixed angle, and adjustable open-ended keyboards, including forearm pronation and wrist extension and deviation. Analysis of 6 studies basically indicate that open-tented designs have a larger effect on pronation and elevation, and that the split fixed angle design had a larger effect only on the elevation. The adjustable slope design was found to have a large effect on the wrist extension. None of the keyboard designs were found to have a significant effect on all three postures. It is important to note that experienced 10-digit touch types apparently adapt within about 10 minutes to many alternative keyboard structure features. They are able to type with speed and accuracy similar to what they had with the conventional keyboard. These are some example keyboards with characteristics designed to reduce cumulative trauma disorders. A self-future, basically fixed split keyboard, comfort keyboard, then ergonomics keyboard, then kinesis, contort ergonomics, and gold touch keyboard, Malton. These are some types of keyboards. Look at these pictures. This gold touch keyboard, Maxim adjustable keyboard, and then this is Acer future keyboard. Issues related to the key characteristics. Basically, key activation forces should be kept low because the force exerted by the typist increases by approximately 40% and finger flexors EMG increase by approximately 20%. When key activation force increase from 0.47 to 1.02 Newton, basically a reduction in the key switch activation force levels to levels lower than those currently recommended by the American National Standards for Human Factors Engineering of the wheel display terminal workstation would help decrease the biomechanical load on the forearm tendons and muscles of the computer users. The most obvious method for reducing excessive force during keyboard task to decrease the magnitude of the force needed to activate keyboard keys. The solution is not an easy to implement. However, reducing key activation force could cause typists to inadvertently activate keys or require them to exert additional muscular effort to minimize accidental activations through contractions of proximal agonist-antagonist pairs. An alternative approach to reducing keyboard force has been proposed by the Radwin. Radwin had subjected tap repeatedly on a single key in a keyboard mock-up and found that peak activation force could be lowered by approximately 24% simply by increasing the over travel from 0 to 3 mm. He stated that the activation force was reduced because the additional over travel facilitates finger circulation. He further stated that increased over travel may provide increased proprioceptive feedback, possibly giving typists better control over the force they exert. Some keyboards have sculpted keyboard and keys to facilitate natural postures and movement patterns of the fingers, hands, and arms. Examples of these contoured keyboards include the Kinesis and Malton keyboards. Readers advised to control the typing injury, frequently asked question websites, and then Massachusetts Institute of Technology assessed technology for information and computing. Software solutions. The ergonomic solution described thus far examining the most traditional approach of attempting to refigure standard data entry devices. Basically, an alternative approach to use software solution to improve the efficacy of the typist and decreases the workload. Example of these techniques include the automation of the computer startup procedures, use of the macros that store frequency and consequences of the commands and phrases that can be activated by one or two characters, commands and commands menus that minimize the number of the key presses required to execute elaborate routines. Another way to enhance the data entry input to output ratio is word prediction. Other recommendations for typists with severe motor disabilities. This technique basically involves the use of the software that presents a list of the plausible completions to the initially typed characters from which the user selects the desired word. For example, subsequent to entering the initial character X, the word exaggerate, accept, explore, and extra are listed. Further, the appropriate can then be selected by the single key stroke, reducing the total number of the key presses. User performance with word prediction software increases when more completions were presented and when the choices are ordered by the word length rather than the alphabetically. Researchers have focused on which systems and user usage strategies are best for which type of the users and task. Basically, for words longer than 3 letters, word prediction can result in a considerable savings in keystrokes per word. Such savings may simply mean, however, that users can complete a longer document in the same amount of the time as a shorter one with no reduction of the workload. Uh, Austin and then colleagues proposed that programmers consider ways to alleviate the stress placed on the typers who use standard alternative keyboards layouts when designing their software. They recommend that where possible, computer programs should be designed to avoid the use of the keys that appear to be implicated in injuring typing, and frequently used commands should be allocated to keys that are more optimally placed. Solutions related to the alternative input method, that is speech recognition. Speech recognition is a computer input method in which the user voice is used to enter all the alphabetically numeric data and commands. Speech recognition has evolved from programs with a very limited vocabulary to those containing more than 100,000 words, and from programs that recognize only isolated letters to those that recognize free-flowing speech without pauses. Such symptoms allows for the freer flow of thoughts and greater speed. Speech recognition has been intensively marked as a way to avoid type-induced CTD of the neck, back, and upper extremities. Some users who use speech recognition as their primary typing method have subsequently developed CTD in their vocal cords, because some speech recognition systems require the users to speak in a monotonous tone and maintain a reasonably constant pitch and inflection. Such speech recognition system places extended stress on the vocal cords, leading to the swelling, hoarseness, and even complete loss of the voice. Basically, speech recognition can lead to the increased activity in other muscles, namely the laryngeal muscles, leading to the muscle tension, dyspnea, as well as dysphonia, and as well as decrease in productivity. The continuous speech system offers the advantage of the greater voice modulation, but may strain the vocal apparatus even more by allowing the users to speak faster and more continuously. Although avoiding use of the speech recognition system for extended times is one way to reduce vocal fatigue and risk of the CTD, such a precaution should significantly magnitude the successful integration of its user into the vocal environment. Further, as per keyboard users, certain arm positions are more comfortable for most users. Calculist and co-workers found that users preferred manipulate a standard mouse when they had an arm support and were able to maintain the forearm in a middle position. Basically, users' body dimensions had a significant effect on preferred mouse location. Certain mouse tasks such as dragging can be particularly taxing, causing sustained loading of the finger flexors muscles. Pointing devices, many manufacturers sometimes provide ways to carry out dragging without keeping the mouse button pressed. For example, the drag function can be locked by a third switch on some trackball devices or by some mouse driver program. The user simply locks the cursor into drag mode, then proceed to move the mouse as in other mouse tasks. Basically, releasing the switch returns the mouse to regular operation. Thank you. Hopefully you all like this lecture. Thank you again.